The theme of the Mothers Union for 2020 is growing in hope and confidence. And I find the Christmas story one of the most hope-filled stories in the whole of our faith. The fact that God Almighty came to earth in the form of a tiny baby and allowed himself to be raised and cared for by an ordinary human family in their very ordinary home, I think gives such a sense of high regard in which God holds the ordinary and people in their everyday lives. Jesus was born in a small town to a humble woman and her carpenter husband, and amongst his first visitors were some very humble, lowly shepherds. And I think this story shows us that God works through the everyday, through the ordinary, through the unimpressive, and through the small things that we have to offer him. I guess many of us feel that when it comes to the things of God, we have little to offer. I know Mothers Union members quite often speak of not doing very much. And yet the things that we do offer God can be hugely significant in practical ways. Knitting a cardigan, baking a cake, looking after children, opening our homes in hospitality. And the Christmas story shows us that God really values those things. He really values the small, ordinary, everyday things that we offer, and he makes something amazing out of them. I think Mary has to be one of the most incredible women in the whole of history. She must have felt so fearful when the angel Gabriel came to her and said that she was going to bear his son. And yet, tentatively and humbly, she said yes to God. I remember the story of Mary being really significant for me when I was exploring a call to ordained ministry. I was pregnant with our first child, and I didn't know many women in ministry at that time. And I remember thinking, how can this be? How is this going to work out, combining motherhood and ministry? And then I was sat in church one Christmas and I heard this reading and I heard this story of Mary saying yes to God. And I realised that God can work through women like me. And all I had to do was say yes, and he would do the rest. So this story of Mary's humble obedience has always been hugely significant to me. From that day, I think I grew in confidence and in hope. And so my prayer for all of the Mothers Union members this Christmas is that likewise you would be able to say yes to God. You'd be able to offer him the small, ordinary things of your lives, and that with you he would grow hope and confidence.